Today we'll cover the series Harvey Beaks from start to end in detail. The show has always been a light-hearted watch, but do you know that it possibly addresses the reality of a lot of behavior that harbors within kids, ranging from themes of well-behaved and naughty, troublesome kids to even touching topics like spoiled behaviors and effects of abandonment on children that grew up without parents? And honestly, when we look at the show from this lens, it makes it feel even more emotionally homey. In fact, in my eyes, the setting of Harvey Beaks and the magical hidden in the somewhat utopian world of Little Bark Grove speaks a lot in favor of this theory. Little Bark Grove is portrayed as if it's a safe little haven for these kids, complete with magic, fun, imagination, and mystery. Here all children are happily thriving, even the ones abandoned like Fee and Foo. These kids are shown going through adventures and learning lessons that would shape their behaviors into something healthy. We have Harvey Beaks, a tiny, innocent, and well-behaved kid cleverly made to be the main protagonist. In short, a perfect role model for the show to frame for all the kids watching and even for the troublemaking characters within the show itself. But there's one little secret. Little Harvey has OCD. His OCD antics are clear from his orderly personality. I mean, this little guy's idea of life is to be loved by everyone, get a kick out of cleaning stuff, and absolutely no rule breaking. To a point where if he fails to please his friends or get a task done, he can go pretty bonkers.
You dare give me the butt.
Okay, that's kinda awesome.
I bet that the majority of kids would lose their heads over getting toys and ice cream. But Harvey, on the other hand, gets his pleasure from unboxing new planners. But despite his seeming innocence, he has a spirit of curiosity and adventure. Clearly, Harvey is not a child who can easily break rules. So he rewrites them in his own sincere way to make the most of life, and the best way to do that is to get some one-on-one mentoring from his troublesome besties, Fee and Foo. Now, Fee and Foo are the total opposites of Harvey. A bunch of troublemaking knackers that, honestly, no one in the Little Bark Grove wants to get toiled with. Out of the two, Fee is more of the driving force. She's confident, daring, and annoying too. Mostly, Fee's the brains behind all the naughty adventures and activities the trio finds themselves in, and Foo is more like a follower. His personality is literally just to have fun while being dumb and making the most out of whatever they're doing. These two are inseparable, but the dark truth is that the two siblings live without a home, parents, or any sort of mentorship at all. Possibly this is what makes them so mischievous and misbehaving at times. Once while Harvey was trying to get his homeless friend some breakfast, the three accidentally ended up near some magnetized rocks, where Fee and Foo rubbed themselves on one of them. Now that they were equally charged, the magnetic force began repelling the siblings apart, and as expected, the two were over the moon with their new ability to wreak havoc. Only the joy didn't last long as the force kept the two away at all times. Harvey did his best to help them out and even consulted his friend Moth, a steampunk-obsessed moth, for help. But the solution that Moth gave them was far too dangerous, and Fee and Foo were forced to accept their reality. Fee was clearly disturbed and even shed a tear over the situation. In the end, she absolutely refused to give up on Foo and ran about the forest trying to get close to him. I don't know, but somehow the two ended up losing all the charge and happily went back to normal. Thank God. Otherwise, who knows, maybe Little Bark Grove would have descended into insanity with Fee's tantrums. Nevertheless, Foo is very dependent on Fee to go about his day, but she, on the other hand, is quite a little independent missy who lets no one ruin her mood or day. On Valentine's Day, Fee, Foo, and Harvey were quite excited to receive all the Valentine candies, but given Fee and Foo's reputation, the residents of Little Bark Grove were clearly gulping at the sight of them and couldn't digest their troublesome expression of love. Meanwhile, Harvey got all the candies for being a good kitty. Fee grew clearly angered by it and decided to celebrate an anti-Valentine's Day instead. And the first thing she did was classically hand out "You smell like farts" notes. Lots of this had to do with Foo feeling down because of all the rejection, and Fee is extremely protective of him, enough to go all evil mode for brother. When Foo got kidnapped by a bunch of sadistic squirrels, Fee got pretty feisty. She, Foo, and Harvey had found themselves a tail in the forest, and Fee classically put it on herself to goof about. The squirrels, seeing this, got pretty offended and kidnapped Foo when he was away to find some more stuff for Fee to bat away with her newfound tail. Even when Harvey tried to negotiate nicely, the squirrels ended up kidnapping him too. Of course, Fee went into evil mode. It was time she negotiated with the critters the fee way. Teaming up with Dade, the grumpy rabbit, Claire the fox, and Kratz the skunk, she attacked the squirrels aggressively and even refused to hand over the tail or back down without taking her beloved brother and best friend back. But Fee and Foo have a lot more to them than just ruckus creating habits, and that's love, loyalty, and care for their best friend Harvey. Honestly, they have a massive influence on the kid, both bad and good. But I'd say it's more of good because through their mischievous adventures and crazy ideas, they're always opening up Harvey's orderly personality to more daring possibilities. Harvey too takes a lot of inspiration from the two's careless and free-spiritedness and wants to follow whatever they do. Once when he went to take a dip in a lake with Fee and Foo, to his surprise they were catapulted right out of it. It's what he called the Pichu. Turns out the lake spirit was done with the two idiots and had banned them. I mean, look at this dude, he's literally peeing there. Eager to follow them, Harvey wanted to have some of that Pichuing out of the lake thrill as well and did everything in order to get banned. But nothing was working at all. So Fee took matters into her own hands and asked all the other kids at Little Bark Grove to go tell the lake spirit how bad Harvey was. Hilariously, they didn't even need to do much convincing because once Harvey saw his friends complaining, he took it seriously and went totally bonkers. That butt slapping was an immediate ban, and luckily he calmed down when Fee told him that they were just helping him out. Harvey was beloved. But following Fee and Foo all the time also meant risking getting into massive troubles, and Harvey had a fair share of those as well. Like when he was so fascinated by how well his friends Fee and Foo could spit that he even followed them to a top of a scarily tall tree. Supposedly a perfect tree to practice spitting according to Miss Fee. And that's when Princess, the spoiled little owl, fell down, taking away all the branches that helped them climb in the first place. The kid survived, but it wasn't good news to Harvey, whose legs were already breakdancing with anxiety. Even when the families showed up to get the kids down by having them leap onto a pile of leaves, Harvey refused to jump off out of fear. To him, the idea of building a society up there was more appealing than the jump. But in the end, it was also Fee and Foo that came back up and gave him the confidence to leap off. And it's like a pretty wholesome moment of the whole show. You'd be surprised by the two siblings at times even calm down Harvey's OCD tantrums. Remember how I said his idea of fun was journaling in his planner? Well, once he got so invested with micro-timing all the activities that Fee and Foo barely even got to have any fun at all. He was just zooming from one game to another only to tick off the to-do boxes in his planner. Finally, Fee stopped him and it did make him a bit jittery. But she took away his planner for the day. It's what she called showing him some tough love.
Foo and I are gonna have to show you some tough love.
So while his friends were having a blast in their very disorganized day, Harvey felt totally empty. To a point that he slowly started going bonkers and making excuses to Fee to give him the planner back. Fee only agreed to give it back once they got lost and realized that she had lost it all along. Of course, Harvey went mad, but while lost in the magical forest of Little Bark Grove, he finally learned the sweetness in taking a break from all the ticking. Luckily, Coolbug helped the kids back home, and the next day, Fee and Foo gifted Harvey a planner they made themselves. And guess what Harvey planned in that one? A scheduled free day with his besties. Still, Harvey's OCD tantrums showed up here and there throughout the show, and at one point, he even went on a mission to fight off a litter monster called the Big Messer, which was totally made up by the kids to get away with littering. It started when Harvey started finding all this litter lying around, and it understandably tickled him the wrong way. So he whips out the superhero outlet complete with scrubbing gloves and goes out on a mission to tidy up Little Bark Grove, calling himself the Night Maid. Like, Dade even got Harvey to clean his room for him because, hey, it was the Big Messer, not him, that messed up the room, right? But soon, out of guilt, Jeremy the fluffy elephant spilled the secret out, and it broke Harvey so much that he just dropped the whole hero thing. Fee couldn't not just let him be this way, and so she and Foo dressed up Jeremy as the Big Messer, and finally gave Harvey something to fight away. Safe to say, Harvey got his moment of heroism. However, it's definitely a question as to where Harvey's habits stem from, and I think it has a lot to do with his parents. You see, Harvey Beaks is a pretty loving father to Harvey, but he's also the coward of the family who has a literal childlike nature, and honestly can be very clumsy as well. While on the other hand, Miriam Beaks, Harvey's mom, is the total opposite, a pretty organized woman who works as a librarian and does most of the disciplining around. When Fu was celebrating the anti-Valentine's Day, Harvey went ahead and sent one of those notes to Miriam as well. And yeah, he got grounded for that. Harvey probably grew up seeing his father's chaotic nature versus his orderly mother and developed a need to always be organized and never a disappointment. I mean, even Miriam at times shows signs of the OCD freakout, like when she literally broke the library window with a book and tried covering it up with paper. Plus, to Harvey, keeping his parents pleased is one of the most important things, especially when they're so nice to even take care of Fee and Fu. In one of the episodes, Irving took Harvey out to see a comet. It was like a little bonding trip, and he even brought Fu with him. All the while, Fee stayed behind with Miriam, and she made sure to bond with the little girl. It gets crazy pretty fast after Miriam tries to spice things up and brings down her photo album from her childhood. They find out that they are both very similar and both love action and excitement. And that was it to spark some youthful craze back into Miriam, who rounded up all the girls and decided to look for the comet as well. Only on the way, she got so wild that even Fee thought she should tone down a bit. I mean, the two even end up getting arrested. Yeah, I'm totally seeing where Harvey got the freak-out part of his personality for sure. Nevertheless, in the cell, Fee even opens up to Miriam about how she feels so jealous of Harvey for having such great parents, a home, and everything family. And Miriam makes sure to not make little Fee ever feel she's without one again. Luckily, the woman tones down and they got back home to knit some warm egg carriers. Speaking of egg carriers, you notice this egg that's kinda always there. Yeah, that's Harvey's little sister, Michelle Beaks. It's so cool how the show builds up to her birth. Throughout Season 1, Michelle is just an egg strapped to Irving Beaks and cracks out with the start of Season 2. Harvey started off pretty excited to meet his little sister until the realization that he won't be the one and only bugaboo to his parents anymore starts dawning on him. I mean, this guy goes through a whole midlife crisis, and Date, who was already traumatized with a gazillion siblings, only made the matter worse. So much so that the little guy zips his sister up and decides to kick her off home. Yeah, literally. Who likes siblings anyways? Okay, too harsh, but seriously. Nevertheless, Harvey sticks the egg under Jeremy thinking he'd be a good parent, only the Dumbo couldn't handle the pressure of parenthood, and soon Michelle was being passed about the whole Little Bark Grove. Luckily, Fee and Fu, who happen to be quite affectionate siblings, managed to knock some sense into Harvey, who finally freaks out and goes around to find his sister. Only by the time he does, some dude literally kicks the egg into a pile of egg-shaped rocks.
Wow, a beautiful egg of my very own. I know just what to do with it. Ha!
Honestly, I'm surprised the thing didn't crack up. Poor Harvey keeps searching all guilt-stricken until he finally finds her and brings her home just in time as it starts cracking open, and out comes a grumpy Michelle. It's pretty funny that the first thing she does is stare down her big bro. Turns out Missy could understand everything from inside that egg. Nevertheless, as the series advances, we see the kids mature and even deal with some tough life. One time, Fee, Fu, and Harvey's elderly friend Blister passed away, and though Mr. and Mrs. Beaks tried breaking the news to them gently, being kids, they all thought it was just Blister pulling a prank, until he didn't really jump out to surprise them at his funeral, making Fee realize he's gone for good. Fee especially was beyond devastated and totally broke down when Blister's stuff was handed down to her. She even got a letter from him telling her how much he loved her. However, the kids learned a valuable lesson in dealing with grief, and the little trio made sure to remember Blister by putting up a statue of his as a final prank. And then this one time, Harvey turns out to be the one influencing Fee and Fu instead of it being the other way around. Fee and Fu all of a sudden developed a habit of stealing people things all over Little Bark Grove. Upon finding out, Harvey was shocked and explained how it was wrong and gonna get them in some real trouble. But being a good friend, he didn't just hand them over as the criminals. Instead, he acts out this whole play, disguising as the thief himself and throwing a fake dummy off the cliff to make it seem as if they caught the culprit. And of course, Fee and Fu returned back all the stuff they had snuffed away. But you know, despite going on so many adventures together, what if I told you that the trio kind of broke up and Fee and Fu had to go their own way? Yep, that's right. The series literally ends with Fee and Fu finally finding their forever home, a family just like they always wanted, and poor Harvey had to come to terms with her absence. While the three were playing a game of hide-and-seek, Fee ran into a pair of strangers. They eerily looked similar to her and Fu, and she was even more baffled when they whipped out a picture of her and Fu as babies. Turns out, those strangers were their long-lost real parents. At Harvey's house, Fee and Fu's parents, Grata and Bada, introduced themselves. They told them how they had been searching for their kids the whole time after they had lost them in an accident where the twins had rolled out of Grata's basket. Fu was over the moon to find his parents, but Fee, being the one who had raised his brother and herself all on her own, wasn't ready to accept the situation. She even told her parents to return as they had been just fine without them. However, later on, Fu took over the role as the mature one and explained to Fee how their parents never abandoned them intentionally. Poor them had been so worried sick searching for them all over until now. In the end, Fee finally warmed up to them, and after some emotional twists and turns, Fee and Fu chose to live with their parents. Only it left Harvey feeling shocked and sad. When it was time to say goodbye, everyone bid farewell to Fee and Fu. The twins' parents even assured them that they could come back anytime. However, Harvey couldn't help but feel down and missed his friends really badly. His family and Michelle tried to comfort him, explaining that sometimes people come into our lives and then have to leave. They reminded Harvey that Fee and Fu would always be in his heart. But the story doesn't end there. Harvey went back to the playground where he first met Fee and Fu. He swung higher than the safety line, just like they used to, feeling inspired by their bravery and spirit. In the end, they left him a brave little guy who finally opened up to the daring possibilities of life. Harvey knew their friendship would stay with him forever, and to add to his joy, he found a letter from Fee and Fu waiting for him in the mailbox. So this was the entire timeline of Harvey Beaks. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to Cartoonverse and click the bell icon for similar content.